All right, guys, welcome to the temporary, maybe permanent, welcome to the studio. I figured I'd get up here in the front of the bus here for a little bit, and was kind of working around up here today, getting some stuff cleaned up, and I thought, well, this looks like a pretty good place to make today's video. So here we are, and you know what that means. Roll it. All right, gang. How's everybody doing today? I gonna kick off a new little series there. I've been kind of putting this off, um, and I know it's something that people really want to know about and talk about, and probably one of the reasons why people come to an off-grid channel. And I've kind of avoided it, and I'll tell you why is because I don't look at myself as being an off-grid expert. I've lived off-grid for over 10 years. I haven't paid an electric bill or a water bill or a heating bill, gas bill, or anything for over a decade, and I still don't consider myself an expert. But I see a lot of so-called experts out there really sharing a lot of what I think is misinformation. All right, so what led me to basically unplug from the power grid and the utility grid and go off grid? For me, the deciding factor was I just got so tired of people at some company that I've never met telling me basically how much they're going to charge me to buy their product, which their product would be energy, electricity, or natural gas, or water. And then when there was an outage or a shortage of some type, and you couldn't get your electricity, or you had to boil your water because it wasn't safe to drink. We had a gas leak at one point, and the gas was out. You get no refund. There's no credit for the power being down. I remember where I lived before I moved out off the grid completely. The power was out in the town I lived in for 2.5 weeks, and we ran generators and spent enormous amounts of fuel trying to make power to keep our food from going bad. And the power company, instead of issuing credits, they raised everybody's bills. And basically, their way they just justified that was the fact that they had been taking money from everybody for years, but instead of replacing transformers that they knew were outdated, they just let them go. And then the storm came through, and I guess it took out a bunch of outdated transformers, and so then we had to pay again to have them go and update all of that. It was the electric bill was just insane. And I watched the news. I haven't had an electric bill for over 10 years. And I watched the news about them raising the rates, and they're talking. I watched this morning. They're talking about in the state that I'm in right now. They're talking about raising electricity and water rates by another 27%. They just raised them by like 12 or 13% just a couple months ago. It's getting to where they're projecting I believe the minimum water bill is going to be like $100 a month, and that's not counting sewage uh, or the rainwater taxes or anything. That's just a regular your base just for being hooked up to water. So it's I know it's frustrating, and it's just a matter of how long you want to play the game that you know you can't win before you make the decision to step out of the game and just remove yourself from it, which was the decision I came to. Was, you know, I can get upset, I can complain, it doesn't do any good, nobody cares. You know, if they price the utilities out of the reach of the average person, you know, that they shut off your water or shut off your power, nobody cares. And there's nothing you can do. No amount of complaining is going to keep it from happening. So you can continue to pay in basically the mortgage of a house and utilities a month, or you can decide to cut ties with it and move on. So right now, my total utilities for the course of a month cost me $25. And the only reason it cost me $25 as opposed to zero is because I have a cell phone. And I have with that cell phone, I get unlimited internet through it. My internet comes through the cell phone, so I get unlimited talk, I get unlimited texting, I get unlimited data, and I can tether to my laptop. There's no data cap on how much I can tether. So, and that cost me $25 a month, and that's should be good probably anywhere in the country. So, but I'm not here to plug any certain provider or anything. So, but there are options. Look around in your area, do some digging, and see what works. If anybody wants a video on, you know, the cell phone deal, just let me know. We'll try to put it together. But $25 a month. That's the entirety. Man, and I know some people that pay $100 a month or $200 a month just for their TV. I mean, wow, that's just staggering to me. So you can get by, you know, less if you let yourself. All right, now what you'll find when you finally decide to cut that tie and break away from these monthly utilities, and you decide to empower yourself and not be at their mercy, you'll be amazed at what you can do. Electric bill, I'm just going to say, I don't know. Just from what I hear, $100 a month for electric, maybe $100 for cable TV or satellite TV and internet. Um, I don't know what cell phone plans are costing. I know what mine is. Mine's $25. But I know it's cheap. So once you cut the ties to all these drains on your income, a couple things happen. For one, you're able to save money again, which is not a real common thing nowadays. There's so many people that live from month to month, and it's all a house of cards. The wind blows just right, the entire thing collapses. And I mean, I don't know what most people would do if something happened and they lost their income, you know, for a month or two. A lot of people would lose everything they own, and yeah. So I would say a side effect of cutting ties will be you will sleep a lot better at night, and you will not feel pressured and feel like the walls are closing in on you all the time. And again, I don't consider myself an expert, but I have been successfully living off the grid, like I said, for over 10 years. So I'm we'll just call this what I've learned. Um, and what I've learned is the first thing that pops in people's mind is solar. And you can see the video where I put the solar on the bus here. But prior to that, I've had solar on my cabin, and a lot less solar on the cabin than what I've actually had on the bus. And there's some reasons for that. But let's roll back before I get into how many panels and all that. The first thing to understand is with solar is, unless you have a way to store that energy that you collect from the sun, you're not benefiting yourself. You may, if you're grid tied, you may be benefiting the power company, but you're not benefiting yourself. I hear people all the time. It's amazing, when people find out that you're off grid and you're running on solar, and they tell you that you've got to spend $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, and you're still never quite break even with the power company. You can get your bill down to a couple dollars a month, but you can never really get past that point to where you're making money from the power company. And let me tell you, the game's rigged. You can't win. If you're grid tied, you're not going to win. They're not going to let you win. And to me, it seems absolutely ridiculous to go to the expense of throwing solar panels on your house or your RV, van, tiny home, whatever, and not store the energy yourself. To take that energy and just give it directly to somebody else, and then for them to tell you whether you broke even or not, guys, that's crazy. It's crazy. Don't do that. Stop doing that. If you don't store your energy, there's no point even jumping into it. With that being said, again, if you're grid tied, you're not benefiting yourself. You're benefiting the power company. So on my cabin, I've had 300 watts of solar panels on there, and the reason is because the cabin faces south. The sun's always, the entire spectrum, the sun is like right on the front of the cabin, so those panels are collecting power all day long. They're at the right angle. On the bus, I have 1,200 watts, and they're laying flat, and one side's on one bank, the other side's on another bank. The reason is because as the sun comes across, if one side's in the shade and the other side's not, it's detrimental. So consult somebody to look at your situation and determine what works for you. But honestly, with 300 watts of solar, you can get by pretty well. A lot of people are going to tell you that can't happen. I'm just telling you from a guy that's done it for the last decade, what works for me. Some things that don't mix with solar, you kind of have to change your mindset a little bit of what your priorities, what aren't your priorities. Induction, and what I mean induction is like the burners on your stove that you turn on, they're electric and they glow red and they get hot. That works off induction. It takes electricity, it makes a direct short, and it causes heat. Anything that's induction is just not solar friendly. It's not going to be friendly for you storing your own power. The energy company's got a huge power plants and transformers, and they can generate tons of power for excess loads. But that's why the reason why your electric bills are so expensive. You're paying for everybody else's load on the grid as well as your own. When you start thinking about self-contained solar, you need to, the first thing that you want to cut out is anything that's induction. So if you got an electric cooktop, change to gas, propane. I used wood burning camp stove forever, or house stove, but you got to get rid of the induction. The dryer, they make dryers, clothes dryers that run on propane. The electric motors are no problem to run. The heating element in the back of it just sucks an enormous amount of power. Even a tiny little small space heater, little tiny desktop ones, little tiny ones, suck just an enormous amount of power. So induction, you kind of need to plan on getting away from that. Find an alternative source. And there's tons of other ways to heat your food. A microwave is far more efficient. I don't personally own one, but a microwave is far more efficient power wise than an induction cooktop. So, um, anyway, let's go. Speaking of appliances, we're going to move on. If you wonder where I'm looking, I've got some notes on the windshield up here, so I can kind of keep my train of thought. Um, you've got what comes into your house normally is alternating current (AC). Those appliances are normally 110 volts. Some of them run 240 volts. Uh, Most of the stuff that's going to be solar friendly, you're going to be looking more like your vehicle. Your car is a 12 volt DC direct current, and when your solar panels, you're bringing it in. There's multiple configurations, and I'm sure there's going to be tons of comments that I'm doing it wrong or I'm telling you wrong. You can bring it. You can set your solar array up for 12 volts. You can go 24 volts, 36, 48. I don't care. But for me, I left everything. I run 12 volts because most of my things I own run on 12 volts. Yes, I could be setting it and bringing it in at 24 or 48 and then run a transformer to drop everything back down to 12 volts. Um, but, I don't, there's no reason. Everything I have at this point, most appliances run on 12 volts. Most of your smart TVs, they're 12 volts on the inside. You take 110 volts from the grid because that's what's provided to everybody out there now at this point, and it converts it to 12 volts DC on the inside. So if you do some research, you can find a lot of appliances that'll just run directly off 12 volts DC. And I look at, like, when I buy my monitor for my computer. You guys have seen my computer in some of the backdrops there. Um, my monitor that's on the swivel I use for TV as well. It came with a 12 with a wall wart, is what I call them, a little wart you plug into the 110 volt wall socket, and it converts it down to 12 volts DC, and it goes right into the TV. Man, I run it. I just cut the end of that off and run it straight into the power from my solar bank, right to my batteries. It's been working just fine for years. So, and that voltage will vary. Uh, I think it'll drop. I've run as low as 9 volts, and I've run as high as 15 volts, and it hasn't hurt anything. So, the only thing I had a problem with over voltage was my max air fan, and it can't handle any more than 12.6 volts or something like that. So, which is kind of ridiculous. Maybe it's 13.1, I can't remember, but it's ridiculous because in a vehicle, they're made to be put in vehicles, and your alternator on a car puts out 14.4 volts max. So anyway, the new lithium iron phosphate batteries, you pretty well run at 14.4 a lot of times, sometimes as high as 15 volts. So the control board cut out. So I did buy a transformer that puts out 12 volts solid, wired it in, hooked it to the Max Air was kind enough to send me a replacement circuit board. I took the fan apart, put it in, wired it in. It's continuous 12 volts to it at this point. Can't go over it, and it's been running on the automatic function for months. It's been flawless. So keep that in mind if you're going with the Max Air fans. So anyway, appliances. Look into your TVs, your computers. Instead of taking 110, like a laptop, instead of going from 110 volts to charge a laptop battery, which is probably a 24 volt battery nowadays in there anyway, 18 volts, some of them are less, some of them are more. You can get a cigarette lighter adapter for a car charger, and just if you're running 12 volts in your house or your vehicle or whatever, you've already got 12 volts. There's no point converting it from solar into your batteries at 12 volts and then converting it to 110 volts alternating current just to knock it back down to 12 volts direct current again. Just cut out the inverter. The inverter is a pretty large draw. And I know a lot of people are running an inverter all the time. And I have an inverter, and matter of fact, there'll be a video come up on that. My inverter of 20 years has finally taken the big nosedive. Rest in peace. So I've got another inverter coming in, but we'll go into inverters on another video there as far as that goes. Um, Sorry, you guys can't see it, but there's a whole herd of deer just just walking in front of the bus here. So anyway, so try to find look. You want to look at your appliances as energy efficient as possible, which seems to be a thing in the past. People just don't even seem to worry about how much power anything draws nowadays. Um, they just feel like there's endless power, I guess. So when you start generating your own power and storing your own power and managing your own power, you become a whole lot more aware of what your energy needs are. Now you may have specialized situations. I know some people need CPAP machines and other things, and you can run those. You can absolutely sustain those with a small amount of solar and some battery power. Um, it's just a matter of figuring out what your needs are. I have two dehydrators I run at the same time. Laptop is running almost all the time. Cell phone booster where I'm at. I can't get a cell phone signal without a booster. That's how you guys get these videos. Um, so let me know if you want a video on the cell phone booster, by the way, and I will put one of those together. Um, I have a can opener. I have a like kitchen ninja, like a food processor, a little small like magic bullet kind of style thing, and I use that to grind coffee and other things as well sometimes. But all those draw like almost no power. You can run those on a 200 watt power inverter, easy. My laser CNC machine with the extra laptop plugged in and charging, I run all that on a 200 watt power inverter with no issues. Now I have a big inverter. My big inverter is the one that smoked on me. So to run the backup inverter, it run the small inverter's running out. There's an oscillating fan like for a house, just a $15 big old oscillating fan from Walmart, sitting back on the kitchen counter right now, running and blowing down on the floor on the dogs to keep them cool. And I do have 12-volt oscillating fans. I just haven't got them all installed in here yet. So um, those will be coming in future videos. But like I say, look at your power draw and look at things that are rechargeable. Um, Anything that you can recharge. When the sun's out, you're making more power than you can use, even with 300 watts for most things. If you do it intelligently. Um, So you could charge everything up in the daytime and then let it run all night. And if you're in a vehicle, you've got the added benefit of having an alternator under the hood. So if it's a rainy day, start up the car and drive around for a while. But even with that said, the bus is still sitting here. It's not made its first maiden voyage out of here yet, so I don't run it. And matter of fact, the system that charges the batteries under the hood of the bus are not even tied to the solar batteries in the back. I might put a inverter to connect them eventually, but right now I've just not even had the need to do it. So save the money where you can. That's what it's all about, right? So we've talked about grid tie versus storing your own power. Storing power, batteries. Let me tell you this, and I wish that, well, I can't say I wish I'd been told. I was told when I first started out. I started out basically like you guys, watching YouTube videos and doing a lot of reading on forums and listening to a lot of misinformation. Um, when you start with batteries, do yourself a favor. Start out with lithium batteries, lithium iron phosphates. They're the ones they call LiFePO 4s. I started out with sealed lead acid, just used batteries, and they don't last. You might get 2 years out of them. Was looking at AGMs, which is the absorbent glass mat inside. They're the ones you can turn upside down or whatever. And they're more than the sealed lead acid, but for just a little bit more than that, you can actually get lithiums. And if you're not in a hurry, you can just order them straight out of China and build your own battery cells to whatever you need. Do a lot of research on that. I'm not going to get into that. But a good source for that would be Will Prowls here on YouTube. Will Prowls, if you do a search for him, Prowse, he is probably the most informed solar expert I've ever seen. Um, he tests the batteries for Battleborn and tears them apart, tells them what they need to improve or not do, and I mean, I'm telling you, he's a very intelligent man when it comes to solar. So check him out if you have solar questions. He can explain it, and he does it in a manner that everybody can understand. So it doesn't have to be confusing. If it's confusing and it sounds confusing, go to another source. Will Prowls, he'll lay it out to you just as it is. Not affiliated with him at all. Will Prowls doesn't even know who I am, but I will tell you he is a very informative young man. So store your own energy. The cost you're going to save, you can have smaller batteries, less batteries. They take up, my entire battery bank will fit in the same footprint as a laptop computer, and I can run, I run indefinitely. I haven't had, since I've got the solar panels on the top of the bus hooked up, I haven't had a generator running at all just for supplemental power at all for 2 months. And this is through, we've had a solid week's worth of rain, and it's overcast out here right now. So a little bit of sun poking through. Sorry, didn't mean to hit the microphone. A little bit of sun poking through, but we're still charging. We're charging great. So that's kind of a beginning primer, I guess, on solar and changing your way of thinking on what to expect and what not to expect. So, and I hope this isn't all over the place. I hope this makes sense. All right, so I'm afraid this video is probably just all over the place, but anyway, let's cut it there, and we'll add on to this little series. I'll try to get something out there probably on this little subgroup about maybe once a week or so. And got questions about off-grid, questions about cutting ties with utilities. Let me know. Put it in the comments, and I will try to address them. Like I said, I really don't talk about this that much. It's just kind of, at this point, I've done it for so long, it's just the way things are for me. But I know that it's got to be very interesting and very very scary for people that are probably thinking about making the cut from the grid. So anyway, all right, guys, God bless everybody. I love you guys. Thanks for watching. Keep your chin up. Things will only get better, and we'll see you on the next video.